Hey there, I'm Sheila. I'm from Boxing Rock Brewing Company, and I'm in the comfort of my very own home to talk, to taste, to perhaps offer a few tidbits about sour beers. So every Monday, I'm going to be doing some sort of beer, a beer style or something new happening in the beer world. So tune in. You can join in as well if you have questions or comments. I'm open to those, and would love to have some tidbits, talks, and toasts with you. So today is the world of sours. Now, I am a firm believer that sours are here to stay. It is not just a trend. Yes, they're super hot and they are super trendy, but they are definitely here to stay. And that really excites me because sour beer is one of my favorite beer styles. I find it to be one of the most interesting, like complex, engaging, super confusing beer style because oftentimes, it can be dry, but it's refreshing. It can be sour, but it can be, a little weedy. Like there's just so many different things happening with sours. But yet they're also, quite simple and they're the perfect gateway beer. So I'm sure, well, I hope some of you have had experiences where you have a friend that says they don't drink beer. They don't like beer. They won't touch it. And you give them a sour. You don't tell them it's beer, you just give them a sour. And I always do that. In fact, I've always done this with Over the Top to my wine drinker, especially white wine drinker friends and cider drinker friends. And I said, just give this a try. And they're always confused by it. And they also often really love it. They don't believe it's beer, but they love it. And especially when now that sours have a lot of really interesting fruit, and a lot of interesting flavors that way, a lot of cider and wine drinkers are getting into sours as well. So it's a pretty exciting world. And I think it's a really exciting style for brewers to experiment with because it is absolutely an experimentation. Traditionally, historically, it wasn't intentional. Cleanliness, sanitation was not necessarily up to the standards of today. So back in the day, wild yeast and beer would quickly sour. And so, you have to drink it either really fast as soon as it was brewed, or in some cases, they found that the souring actually imparted some nice flavors and some nice tastes. So that's how actually sour beer was born, specifically in Belgium, but other countries as well, taking it over. And then coming across the sea to North America, in the 70s. And that's when American brewers really kind of took it and really started to play with it a lot more. And intentionally started adding things like wild yeast. So Brettanomyces is a wild yeast strain, and bacteria. So lactobacillus, Piococcus, those type of bacteria, they started adding them into the beer in different parts of the process, and I'll explain that in a minute, just to get that sour beer flavor and that sour beer style. So we do that here in Nova Scotia, and Boxing Rock has a couple different sours. Over the years, we've had probably 3 or 4 or 5 maybe different sours. Most recently, a really exciting one called the Sour IPA. So 2 very popular styles kind of combined. And then, of course, our classic Over the Top cranberry sour as well. So lots of breweries in Nova Scotia are doing all kinds of different types of sours. They're adding fruit now as well because fruit adds citric acid. So it adds a little bit more tartness to it. It also adds lots of nice flavor of the fruit. So into the beer, and it really makes it approachable to all kinds of beer drinkers and non-beer drinkers, as I mentioned before. So brewers are starting to experiment adding the bacteria. So this is healthy bacteria like it is in yogurt into the brewing process, either in the mash. So that would be a sour mash like our Over the Top. So that's basically before the sparging, before sparging takes place, or in the kettle. So that's after sparging takes place. And really the main difference, and there are some kind of flavor differences you might notice, but really the main difference is when it takes place, but also the sourness is really impacted by how much bacteria is added and also how long the bacteria has to really like take hold and do its magic. So it depends. If you may have had a really super sour beer, and that might be because there's tons of bacteria in it, or it might be because it's had a lot of time. So brewers experiment with that because there is such thing as too much sour or not good sour flavors, as we know. So it's as I said, it's experimentation, and consistency in souring in that process is really, really important. lots of different styles within the style category, I guess, too. Things like the Berliner Weiss, which is a low alcoholic Berlin style beer that offers some really nice sour, but also super refreshing characteristics. Things like the Gose or the Gose, which is like adding the coriander and salt characteristics to the sour. Some great ones here in Nova Scotia. The lambic, which is a traditional Belgian style, and that often has the wild yeast coming in. So lots of really interesting characteristics there as well. So these ones are traditional, like I said, sour mash, kettle sour, and really interesting flavors. So I'm going to give them a try. And, you know, I think I'll start with Over the Top. Over the Top is our cranberry sour, sour mash cranberry wheat ale, I should say. So there is a huge amount of Nova Scotia cranberries added to this delicious beer. And of course, the Nova Scotia cranberries not only add a beautiful coloring, they add aroma and they add a ton of flavor as well. So we're really lucky to have those Nova Scotia cranberries added. I find this beer, because of the cranberries, more tart than sour. But again, it's a beautiful hazy pink. Aromas are really nice cranberries, but you're going to get some other really interesting fruit. And I have a little tasting tray here because I think it's really important to talk a bit more about some of the other flavors that you're going to get. Things like cranberries. And if you're getting berries, it's probably going to be more of the tart berry than the sweet berry. So things like cherries, raspberries, blackberries, blueberries. So you'll get lots of that. And the aroma of Over the Top, I do get some raspberry as well, which is kind of exciting. There's no raspberries in it, but you certainly get that from the cranberry. The other aspect of sours certainly is citrus. Most sours are going to have a big citrus component, whether it be lemon and lime, whether it be grapefruit, whether it be some orange, and even some interesting tropical fruits as well. Again, it would be more the tart tropical fruits than the sweet tropical fruits, but you're still going to get some interesting, sometimes things like mango. And then, of course, the other thing I have on my tasting tray are Sour Patch Kids, because you're gonna get a lot of like interesting sour candy characteristics. And this isn't necessarily like a bad thing. Some people think, oh, well, that's, you know, an off flavor, but it's not. It's actually adds like a nice sour sweet characteristic. The other fun thing is sour candies pair perfectly well with a sour beer. They're really fun, and candy in general actually pairs really, really, really well. Skittles is one of my favorite pairings with Over the Top, so you can try it next time you have an Over the Top. So again, the aroma from Over the Top, really nice. The dry cranberries, maybe a little bit of raspberries, maybe a little bit of like blackberry or black currant. When you have a sip, again, see that it's so dry, but it's so refreshing. Really, really nice, dry, tart, you know, right up front, cranberry, and then it like turns into this kind of nice sourdough, bready, weedy finish. So it's really well balanced that way. The sourness doesn't last the whole time. It's finished off with that really nice wheat sourdough taste as well. This beer, in terms of food and in terms of sours in general, with food, you have such an awesome opportunity to do the cut complement and contrast with sour beers. Because oftentimes as a cut, they offer a palate cleanse, which is a really nice kind of in between courses or in between like a supper and a dessert. This is a perfect palate cleanser. So it offers a cut because it is sour to a lot of like higher intense foods. I often start with a sour if I'm doing a tasting or something, or if I'm having people over to my house, I might offer them sour to start because it'll just kind of open up the taste buds. It really like gets your tongue going, really kind of excites them as well. So it's a really nice, also like taste bud exciter, and certainly a palate cleanse. Offers a complement a lot of the time to any of the fruit. So for instance, with this one, with cranberries, it would offer a nice complement with anything with cranberries in it. And then offers a contrast, of course, because we know sour and sweet are a perfect contrast, or sour and salty as well. So it's really fun to play with. A good pairing with a sour will do all three. We'll cut complement and contrast. So for instance, something like a raspberry coulis over a cheesecake. That's going to offer, paired with a raspberry sour, is going to offer all three. The sour is going to cut the cheesecake, the strength of the cheesecake. It's going to complement the raspberries from the beer and the raspberries in the cheesecake or in the coulis. And then it's going to contrast with the sweetness of the cheesecake and the sourness of the beer. So there's a way to kind of make it all happen with sours, which is exciting. The next one is our sour IPA. So a really kind of revolutionary category, combining those two very popular styles together. I should mention proper glasses for sours. I always like the goblet. It allows you to kind of warm as you drink. It allows you to kind of focus those aromas, and it allows you to sip. Some people, something like a classic IPA glass for this would be a great one. You can also, a lot of people will drink a sour out of a wine glass or a goblet like this. Even a tasting glass is a nice kind of sippy and sour beer. Again, sours are kind of diverse that way in that they can be session beers. Like you can sit out after you've mowed your lawn and have a couple of them. Over the top's only 4%, so it's really, and it's super refreshing. Or, you can kind of sip and savor, especially if you're enjoying it with food or in between a meal. It's a really nice way to kind of, sip and savor. So our sour IPA is exactly as it sounds, and it is certainly a sour beer, but it's also got a ton of hops in it. So again, that really strong hop characteristics, not necessarily all bittering hops. Some you'll get some tropical fruit with this. You'll get a lot of nice citrus as well. It pours a really nice pale golden, like light lemon color. Lots of ton of bubbles in this. So again, this is going to open up those taste buds, excite the tongue. In terms of the aroma, one of the characteristics of the beer I find, not just in the color, but in the aroma and in the flavor, is lemon. So I get a lot of like lemon rind or lemon peel, lemon zest in this beer and the aroma. In terms of a taste with sour IPA, it's going to hit that side of the tongue, those like really kind of bittery, open those up, the side of the tongue. And it's this really nice, fresh lemon, lots of grapefruit, little bit of like orangey kind of tangerine characteristics as well. So it's got a lot going for it. It's got the IPA characteristics like of more almost like a pine or a grassiness, little bit of spicy. It's really a nice, quite dry finish, which is nice because again, it offers that like that cut, and it also offers like a really nice pairing with food. So both of these are really great beers to try at home, both available on our online store. Also sour IPA and Over the Top available at NSLC's, so you can check them out there as well, and the private wine stores in Nova Scotia. So that's all I really wanted to say about sours. If you have any questions, post them on our Facebook page. Get in touch. We love to hear, what customers think of our beer, what people think about the different beers we're inventing, and different styles and things like that. It's a really fun experience to kind of hear from customers. So hopefully you enjoyed and learned a little bit about sours. Here's to Over the Top and our sour IPA, and cheers to you. Hopefully we'll talk again next Monday. Take care.